The world's largest Coast Guard vessel, China Coast Guard 5901, is maintaining its presence off Zambales province in the West Philippine Sea despite Manila's calls for Beijing to withdraw the ship. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, says that the BRP Gabriela Silang has been constantly challenging the presence of the Chinese ship. The 165-meter China Coast Guard 5901 has been dubbed the monster for its size, dwarfing the PCG's biggest vessels, the BRP Teresa Magbanua and BRP Melchor Aquino, which are both 97 meters. According to Tariela, the movements of the China Coast Guard vessel have not been continuous or expeditious, failing to meet the necessary criteria for exercising the right of innocent passage. Tariela says the smaller 83-meter BRP Gabriel Silang effectively maintained a protective position through skillful seamanship to keep the China Coast Guard 5901 at an average distance of about 111 kilometers to 130 kilometers from the Philippine coastline. He adds that the PCG's close maneuvering against the China Coast Guard vessel is vital to prevent it from approaching forward the Zambales coast. Tariela also says that the China Coast Guard vessel issued a radio challenge to the Gabriela Silang, telling it to keep away as it was violating the 1972 Convention on the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea. Tariela further says that China's allegation disregards the more critical issue of the China Coast Guard's illegal presence within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Senator Marco Rubio, United States President-elect Donald Trump's pick to lead the State Department, says China should stop messing around with the Philippines and Taiwan, noting that its deeply destabilizing actions in the region are compelling the U.S. to counteract. During his confirmation hearing before the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations on Thursday, January 16, Rubio discourages Beijing from carrying out anything rash or irrational when it comes to the Philippines or Taiwan if it is serious about destabilizing U.S.-China relations. Rubio says China's actions now are deeply destabilizing, forcing the U.S. to take counteractions because the U.S. has commitments to the Philippines and to Taiwan that they intend to keep. Rubio adds that if China wants to destabilize their relationship or at least create some pathway for stabilization with their relations to the U.S., China really needs to stop messing around with Taiwan and with the Philippines. The U.S. Senator from Florida warns that if any miscommunication or some inadvertent conflict emerges out of China's harassment in the South China Sea, which would then force the U.S. to defend the Philippines as its treaty ally, the impact it would have on the entire globe would be enormous. Most recently, Beijing drew Manila's ire after it deployed a 165-meter-long Coast Guard vessel dubbed as a monster ship near Zambales, an example of the harassment Rubio mentioned in the hearing. Rubio also says that if a miscommunication or inadvertent conflict emerges in the waters, the U.S. will have obligations to the Philippines. In the same hearing, Rubio emphasizes Manila's strategic importance to Washington, D.C., not only on the military perspective, but also on the real economic opportunities it could explore with the country. He also acknowledges the Philippine government's welcoming attitude in recent years to further boost engagement with the U.S. President Bongbong Marcos is urging substantial allocations for key programs of the Department of Education, which warned that cuts in its 2025 budget could worsen teacher shortage in the country. Marcos met with DepEd officials in Malacanang on Thursday, January 16, according to the Presidential Communications Office. During the meeting, Marcos notes the budget reductions in various education projects, although the sector is one of his administration's top priorities. According to Marcos, the government must be able to show that education is their priority. The Congress previously approved 737 billion pesos of the 748 billion pesos proposed budget of DepEd for 2025. The slashed allocations were for the creation of new school personnel positions, implementation of the DepEd computerization program, and the Basic Education Facilities Fund. According to DepEd, the reduced budget for the DepEd computerization program will affect the delivery of learner and teacher tools such as laptops, smart TVs, and satellite-based internet. The Presidential Communications Office says that DepEd was forced to cancel about 4 billion pesos of the 7 billion peso worth DepEd computerization program projects that already underwent early procurement activities. The Presidential Communications Office also says that Marcos concurred with the plan of the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority to study options to finance its unfunded programs. It also says that although TESDA's budget rose to 20.73 billion pesos in the 2025 General Appropriations Act from 18.50 billion pesos in the National Expenditure Program, some of its key programs were left without funds this year. These TESDA-based projects included the creation of Enterprise-Based Training Office and the establishment of new regional office for Negros Island region. The National Capital Region Police Office reports a 23.73% decrease in index crimes from November 2024 to January 2025 compared to the same period last year. Based on the Metro Manila Police's data, the NCRPO seized more than 150 million pesos worth of illegal drugs. In its anti-gambling campaign, the Capital Police Force arrested more than 3,000 players and confiscated over 900,000 pesos in pot money in more than 1,500 operations. The National Capital Region Police also reports that they have seized over 360 illegal guns and arrested more than 350 individuals for possessing unregulated firearms from November 23, 2024 to January 15, 2025. Furthermore, the police logged over 2,000 arrests of wanted persons and about 350,000 violators of local ordinances during the same period. National Capital Region Police Acting Regional Director Brigadier General Anthony Aberin says that the police shall consider these initial operational milestones as their motivation to remain committed in performing their mandate of keeping peace in Metro Manila.